Is there a maximum speed you can go with this?
This will do about 45 miles an hour.
So it's perfect for in town.
Oh yes, yeah, perfect for in town, and you can just coast for stop signs. And
Coast. Did you just turn off the power?
yeah, I turn off the power and we're just coasting. The car does have low roll resistant tires, which helps increase the range, and you could buy those on a normal gas car too and pick up 2 or 3 miles a gallon. Better fuel economy.
And so you've got a little on-off switch there.
This is Peak Moment. We are living at a peak of human innovation, information, wealth, and health. But we're also at a peak of population and consumption, with rising temperatures and declining resources fueled by cheap oil and gas. Peak Moment Television, bringing you examples of positive responses to energy decline and climate change through local community action.
Hi, welcome to Peak Moment. I'm Janaea Donaldson. There's a man in Idaho who's built a passive solar-powered, solar-heated house, and he's built himself a solar and electric car, and he commutes on a bike. His name is John Weber. He's our guest today. Thanks for joining me.
You're welcome.
So you designed this house, yes?
Yes.
What makes it passive solar?
The passive solar design is because all the windows, almost all the windows are on the south side of the house. There aren't.
That's what we see here. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, okay.
And there aren't any windows on the east or west sides of the homes, and that's traditionally what makes homes overheat in the summertime because the sun's at a low angle on the east and the west.
And brings the heat into the windows.
Exactly.
I see. Okay.
And the sun is very high in the summertime on the south side, so the sun doesn't enter the house on the south in the summer.
So you've got your eaves high enough so that the sun just never hits the house,
Exactly.
into the windows.
In the summertime. In the wintertime, when the angle of the sun is much lower, the sun enters the house about 20 feet and it heats up the whole house.
So what kind of temperature range do you have inside and outside in those seasons?
Well, in the wintertime, it can be in the 20s outside and it'll be in the low 70s inside.
Nice.
Without any heat on if the sun's out.
Yep.
And in the summertime, it can be over 100 outside and typically in the very low 80s in the summertime without any air conditioning on.
So you are keeping it in a really comfortable range just from how you've designed the where it faces.
Yes.
And
yes.
probably the kinds of windows. Right.
The windows are just double pane normal windows on the south side to let the heat gain come in. And on the north side, I do have one small low E window to keep the cool out.
I see, I see.
On the north side.
It sounds too simple.
It's pretty simple. The Anasazi Indians had it figured out 4,000 or 5,000 years ago with their cliff dwellings, and I'm just kind of copying them.
Thank you, the Anasazi people, and thank you, John. I mean, we need the modern versions of that. Now, you've got a lot of panels up there for power.
Yes.
So tell us about that.
There's 2,202 watt evergreen solar panels, and so there's 2,244 total watts.
Okay, 2,240, wow, sitting up there.
Yes, and so that's the production for the electricity.
So in a day, how many kilowatt hours do you, a sunny day, do you generate?
I can generate about 13,000 watts, so about 13 kilowatt hours on a sunny day. And my record is about 15.3 kilowatt hours on a sunny day.
Just to give people a context, the average American home uses about 30 to 35 kilowatt hours a day. So you're using half of that in a very comfortable home, generating it yourself.
Yes.
We'll take a look at that in a minute on your power. Then you've got some tubes. What's up there? What's the other piece?
The tubes are to heat the hot water for the domestic hot water. So they typically, when the sun's out, they'll reach about 240 degrees in the glyco loop that goes into the hot water tank.
Okay, so the water gets heated up there.
Yes.
And then what do? You pipe it?
And then I pump it into my 50-gallon hot water tank, and there's a heat exchanger in there, and it heats up the water in the hot water tank.
So tell me what the heat exchanger does, because I don't understand what that is.
The heat exchanger is like a wand. It was designed by Dr. Butler in California. And it just dissipates the heat from the glycol loop into the water in the water tank.
Oh, okay, okay. So it sort of surrounds it or something. Because
Yeah,
glycol, you're not going to drink the water.
No,
I mean, yeah.
because of the cold winters here, we need something that won't freeze in the winter to pump up on the roof.
Okay, okay. Thank you. I needed
Sure.
that piece. I want to go back to the solar power for a moment. You've got an array here that, do you go to batteries? Do you take it back to the grid? What happens with that electricity?
Well, during the day when I'm producing more than I use, I sell the power back to the local power company.
Okay.
And at night I buy back from them. So I don't have any batteries at all.
Okay, so and in Idaho, is this, I mean, California, they have incentives and more people are doing that. How about in Idaho? Is that a regular? I didn't see a lot of photovoltaics.
No, there aren't very many here in Idaho. There's not a lot of state incentives or incentives from the electrical utility currently. Hoping for more in the future.
So you were one of the first to do this on a home, is that?
Yes, I was
early on?
one of the earliest to be the grid tied, and at one time I was the only surplus solar person in the state. I believe there is one other person that has surplus production of solar
That they're
now.
selling back to the grid.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Congratulations.
Oh,
thank you. May you have many more people following in your footsteps. Let's go take a look inside and so people can see the chart of your usage.
Oh, sure.
Yeah?
Yeah.
John, your bill that I see here has only got power usage in a couple of months and none in the rest. So what happens? Tell me about this.
Well, what happens in the summer months when I don't use a lot of electricity, I use very little electricity, and we have these long cloud-free summer days, I produce a lot of power that I'm selling back to the local utility and receiving a credit every month.
So do you end up with zero? I mean, paying very little?
It's pretty close at the end of the year to make about as much as I use in a year's time. And it kind of depends on the winter is my heavy use time. If it's cold and cloudy, then I have a backup heat pump that provides the heat for the house.
So if you don't get enough sun in here to keep the house warm, you've got some heat.
Exactly.
Heating that
Yeah.
you're paying for here. Electric heat pump?
Electric heat, yeah. The whole house is all electric. There's no natural gas in the house.
So your stove?
Stove is electric. Oven
which
is
uses
electric.
a lot of power. So you actually do really well being able to come out nearly at zero or thereabouts with an all-electric home.
In the summer, I use about 3 kilowatt hours a day. And so in the winter, I use more than that. But in the summer, I produce about 13 kilowatt hours a day. So I sell back about 10.
That's the wave of the future. That's really wonderful. I noticed when I came in, these wonderful gallon jars with colors. And they were on the floor near the windows. And so tell me about this.
Well, this is an experiment that I had. I wanted to see which colors would absorb the sunlight and be able to keep the heat the longest in the winter time.
Why do that?
Just because I've just an experiment to see which would work best. I also have some dark green glasses like this, and they seem to work the best, and they'll keep the heat for about 4.5 hours after the sun goes down.
So what do you do with that? I mean, that's what, a way to keep the warmth in the house for longer? Is that what that's for?
Yes, it's a way so the house doesn't overheat in the winter because there's not enough mass to capture the solar energy.
In the house itself?
In the house, because then it would just be captured in the air and the air would get very hot.
Okay.
But then it would dissipate quickly at night. And if there...
So, go ahead, I'm sorry.
And if there's a way you can kind of trap that heat, then it'll radiate gently throughout the evening rather than just go away very quickly if it's in the air.
So, what you talk about in the solar mass, the warmth stays in the water. And slowly radiates out through the night.
Exactly.
That's nice. That's a very nice way to supplement what you're doing with your passive solar design in your house.
Yes, and it acts as a moderator in the summertime also because it keeps things cool when it's hot outside, and it takes a long time for this mass to heat up, so it absorbs that heat, and it just kind of moderates the temperature.
That's a nice design. So I saw you have a very big aquarium in the other room.
Yes.
Doing the job, a big job.
Yes, the aquarium's 120 gallons, and with the glass, it weighs about 1,200 pounds. And I can heat that up to about 74 degrees in the wintertime when the sun's hitting it. And then that mass stays warm for a very long time, a couple of days.
I can just see it now, everybody with the little aquariums in the sides of their house, right?
As long as it's inside the house,
Yeah,
it will help trap that heat and keep it.
How did you get into all of this? I mean, this is the experiments you're doing and the solar, and we will see your solar car, but what prompted you to do all that?
Well, I had lived on a sailboat for 2.5 years, and I powered the whole sailboat with a 50-watt solar panel and 2 deep cycle batteries.
Wow.
And so I figured if I could do that on a sailboat, I should be able to do it in a house also. And then I attended kind of like a seminar at the Discovery Center here in Idaho, and they brought Paul McCready and some people from Idaho Power and some other people to talk about power. And how energy is going to be in short supply, and how you could net meter, and so I thought designing this house would be a good thing to do.
You also mentioned, though, that you got concerned about peak oil. How did that fit in?
Well, at some point, probably in 2004, around there, I'd watched a movie, The End of Suburbia, and then I just started doing more research on when oil's going to peak, and it looks like we're pretty much there right now, especially looking at gas prices. So.
The gas prices seem to say that, and I have also, here we are in spring 2008, and I read that we probably peaked in light crude, sweet crude, in 2005.
That's what it seems.
So it looks like we're starting down that decline. So has that how has that impacted other choices in your life or things you're doing?
Well, I'm going to try to grow a lot more of my own food in my own yard, and because the food prices are tied to the transportation prices, which are tied to the oil prices.
Sure.
So I've got to have a couple of fruit trees, many berries, and going to grow a lot of food this year.
And what you have is a suburban lot. I want to just add, it's like you're doing a lot with a fairly small footprint.
Yes, it's between 1/5 and 1/4 of an acre lot, so basically just a regular suburban lot.
I think you also mentioned you're working with your other people in your community. You're concerned about this too.
Yes, we have a relocalized community called Boise Sustainable Living Community, and we started with about 4 people a year ago, and now we have about 50 people. And we have about 20 people that are really active, and we're doing some food buying and sharing, and we operate as a gift economy, so it's not even a barter, it's just a gift to gift different food or labor or help or whatever other people need.
So you're building community and doing some getting prepared. I'm glad to hear that. It's encouraging.
Yeah, I believe we need community in order to make this all work. One person can't do it by themselves.
No, that's true. We're pretty independent, pretty interdependent, aren't we?
Yes.
So I'm intrigued because you have this solar electric car, and so we've heard about electric cars, but a solar electric car?
Yes, well, the car is an electric car, is converted from an old 88 Ford Festiva, has about 261,000 miles on it now, and so originally converted to an electric car, and then added actually 5 solar panels on it to help charge it.
Can we go see?
Oh, sure.
Okay,
yeah.
let's go see.
Want to go for a ride?
Oh, yes. Oh, I'd love to. It's a cute car. I like it. It's a sun car, you call it?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Well, tell us about it.
Well, it used to be an old car in an abandoned tow lot that I purchased. It used to be silver, and it was full of junk, and it had a polluting gas engine in it that actually still ran when I bought it, and took out the old motor and the AC condenser and the radiator and the exhaust and the fuel tank, all those parts you don't need for an electric car.
Which means you left the transmission, which I want a little
Yes.
tour in here. How did you know how to do this? I mean, have you done this before?
No, actually I bought the kind of a kit from Wilderness EV, it's called, in Utah. And it's kind of gave you some simple directions on how to do it. And,
Simple.
and I had some help from people at work too, that some people at work knew how to weld, and I don't know how to weld, and the mechanic at work helped me with a bunch of things also. So that's kind of how we put it all together.
So you got a kit, and you got help, and you took out what isn't needed because it's gasoline oriented.
Yes.
So what is there in a car? I want to see. Can I have a tour of what's under the hood?
We'll show you what's still left under there.
What's still left?
There's not a lot there anymore.
Well, it sure does look different. There's no engine.
Yes, so this is the regular car battery that runs the lights and the wipers and the fan and the turn signals and everything like that, but it is a deep cycle kind, so it's good for deep discharges and recharges.
Okay.
And these 3 batteries here are 6-volt golf cart batteries, and they're tied together in series. There are about a few more in the back, and they equal 48 volts altogether.
They're bigger. They're deeper.
Yes, they hold about 220 amp hours each. And then the actual motor is down here underneath. This is a charger that you can plug it in.
So that means you've got a plug-in electric, so you can plug into the house.
Exactly, you can plug into any 110 outlet.
Okay.
And but under here is actually the motor. And
it's kind of small.
Yes, it's only about 15 horsepower.
Doesn't take a lot of room.
Electric motors are much more efficient than gas motors, so you don't need a lot of horsepower.
Okay.
And this is the controller here, and that controls the amount of electricity given to the motor so it adjusts the speed. At one time I didn't have a controller, so I just had an on and off switch. And so you would just be going or not be going. And
That's kind of hard to control?
It was kind of fun, actually.
Really?
Because it just went all of a sudden, and you can use the clutch to moderate the speed before I had the controller. The controllers are kind of expensive, and they take some power, so it does not allow you to do regenerative braking. Without the controller, you could downshift and it would put power back into the batteries.
Right.
But you can't do that now because you would put all the energy into the controller.
Not good, not good.
So.
And so you said you have more batteries in the back?
Yes, we can go into the back here. And in the back.
Oh, I see, under your
we have 5 more batteries.
I see, okay.
And these are all tied together in series. These little clips are for the solar charging. And each panel is a 12-volt panel, so it charges 2 batteries together in series.
Well, let's take a look at this. I mean, the batteries, the panels, what you're talking about. Now, that's your addition, or was this a kit?
No, this is something that I figured out to use to charge the car. It was something that I just bought at Costco. It was designed for RVs originally. And so each of these panels charges 2 batteries. There's another small solar panel in the front by the windshield that charges the small battery up front, the 12-volt battery. Okay,
all right. So these guys, so on how much juice do you get out of these?
The solar panels will add about an additional 4-mile range in the summertime. Okay. So that's so they're not a main charging source, but they're kind of a range extender.
So that's actually a very good question. You've got, what, total of 6 batteries?
8.
8 batteries. 8. Deep cell batteries. So when you have this fully charged,
yes,
from the sun, from the plug-ins, from whatever, what kind of range do you have with this car?
Well, it depends on the speed, how many hills you have, and the temperature. But it's about between 13 and 20 miles in the city driving. If you didn't have stop signs and acceleration to deal with it, you probably could do about 30 or 40 miles.
So I'm trying to think this. How much did it cost you to modify this?
I'm thinking everything, including the car, the paint job, between about $5,000 and $7,000 total.
That's not bad, including the batteries and the kit and everything?
Yes, and everything.
Now, your labor
And including any labor that I had to pay and other things.
That's fabulous.
Yes.
That's fabulous. 13 to 20 miles, so you just have to go plug in again.
Yes.
Is the main thing. So how much it costs, probably you have to think about what your electricity costs.
And in Idaho, before I installed the solar panels, I was checking how much power it took to charge it up and how much it took per mile to use. And it's about 2 cents a mile in Idaho at Idaho rates.
2 cents a mile?
Yes, without the solar addition.
I think you're beating the gas by a long shot.
So if you drive 20 miles, it costs about 40 cents in electricity.
That's a deal. I love your, by the way, I love your little bits of advertising back here. This is fabulous. Renewable energy is homeland security. I mean, that's, I bet you get people talking to you about this, right?
Well, it's just, I think it's the only way that we won't have to continually fight wars to get energy, so.
Creating the new in the shell of the old. Well, there you are. You've got a gas car that has no emissions, no carbon dioxide, other than what it took to build it.
Yes.
Right. And no big oil. Well, thank you. Can I take a ride? Can we have a ride?
Oh, sure.
in this?
Let's go for a ride.
Yeah.
Come on in.
This is a roomy little thing. I didn't expect that for an electric car.
Oh, yeah, there's plenty of room in here.
Well, can we go for a spin?
Sure. Well, let me turn the key, and the sound that you hear is the fan that I use to cool the motor.
Ah. Okay.
And then we can just shift it into first gear there. Okay. And work the clutch a little bit, give it a little bit of gas, and we're off.
I hear a high-pitched sound. Is that to the motor? That's
the motor. And we're rolling here, and probably want to turn some lights on because it's getting darker. And,
so I hear the motor, and I hear the fan. And you're just a manual transmission?
Just a manual transmission, and you just shift it like normal. About 15 miles an hour, we'll be shifting into second gear. I do have a couple of gauges here. This one's the amp gauge, shows how much electricity we're using right now. Mm-hmm. And then this one's harder to see. It's the volt gauge, and it tells you how much is left in the batteries.
So is there a maximum speed you can go with this?
This will do about 45 miles an hour.
So it's perfect for in town?
Oh yes, yeah, perfect for in town, and you can just coast for stop signs.
Coast? Did you just turn off the power?
Yeah, I turned off the power and we're just coasting. The car does have low roll resistant tires, which helps increase the range, and you could buy those on a normal gas car too and pick up 2 or 3 miles a gallon. Mm-hmm. Better fuel economy.
And so you've got a little on-off switch there that you're pressing.
Yeah,
like
I have a little
you're just
switch
turn the
here.
power on when you need it.
And this engages the contactor, which engages the high voltage for the batteries. And then we can just go again here and take right off down the road. And it's a little different than a normal car. Here you shift when you're at the maximum RPM instead of the minimum RPM. And seems to work quite well.
How long did it take you to do this, to do this conversion?
It took probably about 3 or 4 months total between working after work and on the weekends. But after doing the first one, if you had the right skilled people, you could probably do one in a weekend.
In a weekend?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
To take the whole engine out and all the parts you don't need and put all this in?
Mm-hmm. With the right group of people, you could do that, yes.
Wow. Yeah, I could see that you had mounts there for the batteries, so they were up on, level and sort of in, because you're putting them in odd places. So I could see that you'd need to customize that to whatever body, engine body you had.
Yeah, well, probably one of the hardest things was just building the battery brackets. Mm-hmm. And everything else was pretty simple.
Well, it sounds like the kit maybe helped make that easier to do.
Yes, it had all the components that you needed to do it, and I did upgrade some of the components for a little better quality. So
have you ever calculated how many panels you'd need to have to to actually run, what would I want to say? Run it for your full range, your 13 to 20 miles. How many panels would you have to have?
Oh!
More room than you have on your roof, of course.
Yes, yeah, I'd probably need probably about 3 times as many panels. So.
Not realistic at this point.
No, I just wanted to kind of see if it would work, and it works, and now I'm off to more sustainable things
Like what?
Like biking. So
bicycles. So that's your new thing.
Yeah, I think they're just more sustainable, and they're less expensive because you don't have to pay for a car insurance or registration or any kind of maintenance at all. The electric car has very little maintenance, but compared to a gas car, you have to replace the brushes about every 400,000 miles in the electric car, and but there are no oil changes or coolant changes or spark plugs or air filters or anything like that.
Well, but I can certainly see that bicycles and electric bicycles are a nice step, more sustainable, though not applicable for everybody.
That is
it's
true.
Not useful for everyone.
Yeah, not everybody can ride a bicycle. But
And the weather isn't always right for it.
exactly, like tonight.
Well, this is fun. Thank you for the ride.
Oh, sure. Anytime. Okay.
John, this has been a wonderful tour of not only your car, your house, but your whole philosophy. Your whole philosophy of even more and more sustainable. It's pretty commendable. You're giving a lot back to this planet.
I just keep trying to find ways to be more sustainable and live more local.
And you're doing it. And you're doing it. What a model to all of us. Thank you. Thank you so much for this peak moment.
You're welcome. Thank you.
You're watching Peak Moment, Community Responses for a Changing Energy Future. My guest is Joan Weber of Boise, Idaho. Thanks for watching.